Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and when I'm not mischievously unscrewing the lids of salt shakers as a little prank, while also replacing the salt with anthrax powder, I'm here at the Wolfula reviewing movies. Well, this is the last video ever. Goodbyes are so hard. Seriously, it's been a fun ride, but the winds of change are blowing and this old Wolfula is moving on to new and better— Psych! April Fools, I totally tricked you. Or at least I tricked those of you who culturally don't have April Fool's Day and don't know what it is, but still, I tricked some of you. And that's what counts. I'm not done making videos. I'm going to make 5 or 6 more videos before I quit, but this isn't the last one. Since this is April Fool's Day, I thought it'd be appropriate to review, well, April Fool's Day. I'm very creative. And so are the people who came up with names for slasher movies. Seriously, it was first come, first served with slasher movies based on holidays. Worked for Halloween after all, a holiday that revolves around horror. So of course it makes sense for horror movies that take place on New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, Easter, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, and Jesus Christ, a lot of Christmas. You know, all those terrifying holidays. Well, as the title suggests, Paramount Pictures got dibs on the one April Fool's Day horror movie. Okay, not really. There's a remake too because, well, of course there is. Direct-to-video as well, so you know it's quality. Don't even need to see it to give it my full recommendation. We're dealing with the original April Fool's Day now, though, and it's a tricky movie to truly categorize or even openly talk about without totally giving away what it really is.
Oh, my.
I mean, how do you make a slasher flick about a date mostly known today for Google adding Pokemon and Pac-Man to maps? On the surface, April Fool's Day has all the trappings of a typical slasher film. A handful of college kids are off on a ferry to spend the April Fool's weekend at an island retreat owned by their filthy rich friend Muffy St. John, which is the most porn star sounding name short of Connie Lingus. Sorry, you can't take that name, it's mine. Speaking of porn, April Fool's Day begins with some pretty cinema verite shit. Interviews with a few of the characters on the ferry.
Help me out. Yeah, sure.
Nikki's segment in particular comes off like the pre-interview in a backroom casting video.
My parents are my best friends. Oh, and I start convent school next semester. And I fuck on the first day.
Only thing missing is the couch. Beginning the movie with handheld camera footage is pretty surprising and innovative for when the flick came out. It's an interesting approach to establish the characters early on and create a sense of realism. The opening sets the tone of the movie. April Fool's Day revolves around characters, not situations. Even the characters themselves are too caught up in their April fooling around to care too much when things go south. And brother, things go south pretty quick. Things start off innocently enough, with Biff from Back to the Future stabbing a man, who proceeds to fall backwards into the cold Canadian water below. Turns out to be a delightful April Fool's gag when 2 guys come to Skip's rescue.
Hi! What you looking for? We got him!
Pretend involuntary manslaughter, a staple of April Fool's Day pranks. As usual, whenever white college dudes recklessly horse around, somebody ends up getting killed or at least severely injured. In this case, the collateral damage is one of Skip's attempted rescuers, Buck, who gets his head crushed between the ferry and the dock. Buck comes out of this transformative experience looking like the fucking Toxic Avenger. The weekend would be a serious buzzkill if the gang had to deal with this shit the whole time, so the ferryman rushes Buck off by speedboat to the mainland. Oh, thank God. Buck was really grossing everybody out.
If anything else happens, or if anything happens to Buck, I want to know just where to find him.
Of course, our group of heroes doesn't let Buck's sudden, horrible disfigurement stop them from having a good time. The gang meets up with Muffy at her lavish manor that's in view of the Kennedy compound and proceed with the festivities, along with some continued tomfoolery at each other's expense. I mean, it's funny, but it's not fake murder funny. And that's kind of a running vibe that the movie has. Even after they witnessed a man's life pretty much ruined, even when their friends become dead fucking bodies, the characters don't lose their chill.
Come on, hey! Would the Birdman of S&M worry?
Very funny, Chaz.
You gotta look at the bright side of things. Everything's gonna be okay.
These characters don't take the threat against their lives too seriously, so you can't take the horror in this movie seriously either. The movie's called April Fool's Day, after all.
April Fool.
That's the theme of this movie. Horror you can't take seriously. April Fool's Day isn't so much a slasher movie as it is a strangely sophisticated commentary on the 1980s through the lens of a slasher movie.
I mean, how can anyone be serious about anything when some moron can steal a bomb or push a button and nuke us all until our shadows glow?
Like Biff says, this was a post-nuclear world and there was a lot of fear, for a time, of the inevitable atomic destruction, but fear is a funny way of becoming apathy after a while. April Fool's Day came out towards the back end of the slasher film fad, and annual Friday the 13th movies had made audiences all too familiar with the formula of a killer stalking teens. Jason Lives even reflected this attitude by no longer taking the concept seriously.
I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
When horror becomes too familiar, even real-life horror, all you can really do is laugh. Don't leave home without it. So, April Fool's Day is not really a full-on horror film, and you'd be remiss to go in expecting horror. Like me! The movie wasn't meant to be advertised as a slasher film. It's not that suspenseful until the end, and there's very little gore. April Fool's Day is more of a spooky, humorous whodunit with college kids. Like Clue, but hip. But you end up seeing the DVD cover with Amy Steele's reflection in a knife, and you might say, I love Friday the 13th Part 2, I'll love this as well. I got bad news for you, pal. You won't be seeing no double impalements during the wacky, uncomfortable-looking sex scene the movie has. Honestly, that looks like it hurts more than a double impalement. Jason's not necessary here. The goriest thing in this flick is a bloody crotch. Guys should really see a doctor. Instead, unlike a typical Friday the 13th flick, April Fool's Day is held up by the characters. Their interactions and pranks are the main attraction here. April Fool's Day has a pretty rich and diverse cast of characters. Well, they're all white. I mean, if you're colorblind, the soccer playing scene should tip you off that they're all white. Point is, the characters feel different from each other. At first, they seem like mere stereotypes. The jokester, the artsy dude, the virgin chick, the weird southern guy, the whore, etc. But there's so much more to these assholes than appearances would suggest. Some of the characters are kind of dickish, but I didn't really find myself hating anyone in this movie.
Hi, my name is Mary O'Toole O'Reilly O'Shea, and I want to go to convent school and things like that. Welcome to my home.
The characters are dicks in a likable way. That's a feat in a horror movie. The acting is pretty solid throughout, even when the cast say lines that don't make sense.
Boy, when she said well, she really meant well. Who dug this thing, Pocahontas?
Oh, I didn't know Pocahontas was known for digging wells. The wardrobe hasn't aged tremendously well, though. In this scene, Chaz looks like Aladdin if he did his clothes shopping at Banana Republic. I also have mixed feelings about the sound design in the movie. There are some pretty interesting choices that build atmosphere, but the main theme sounds like a theremin getting blown by a synthesizer.
Hello?
It's not exactly hummable. The end credit song, Too Bad You're Crazy by Jerry Whitman, is a real bop, though.
Too bad you're wacko. Wacko. How sad your marbles are gone. All gone. We could be dancing till dawn, but you're too weird for words.
Spoilers ahead. It was really hard to talk about this movie much without spoiling it, but I think I did a bang-up job. Still, I want to talk about the conclusion, but I don't want to ruin the flick for you. Seriously, watch the movie if you haven't already. Skip to this time code to avoid the spoilies. These young adults start dropping like flies at the hands of an enigmatic killer. Of course, none of the deaths happen on screen or with much of a reaction. Wonder what's up with that. Well, the killer is revealed to be Muffy, the very person who invited everyone up to the manor to begin with. But it's not really Muffy committing the murders, but her evil twin, Buffy. Muffy's fucking dead. Dun, dun, dun! Rob and Kit here are the only survivors, and they have a lot of trouble fending off a lone girl. Just fucking grab her. Fuck the knife. Things get grim when Kit is left alone to face Buffy, with nothing to defend herself with but a loose tie. Very trendy, by the way. Before knife meets face, Kit tumbles into the living room where everyone who died is hanging out, not dead. What's up with that? Is this some kind of Friday the 13th dream sequence?
Where's Paul?
Actually, the whole movie was a very elaborate April Fool's prank hatched by Buffy, who is actually Muffy.
Oh, ha ha. Ha 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 ha! That's really funny, you guys! Fuck you!
You see, Muffy was inheriting the mansion and wanted to turn it into a murder mystery-themed hotel and used her friends as test subjects. Wow, that's cold. Everyone got in on the prank as time went on. Some of them were actors like the sheriff, the ferryman, even Buck, the guy who got his face fucked up. Buck's actually a makeup effects artist responsible for all the gore. Oh, I guess he was totally able to put on his makeup in the water. Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, this is a bit of a fuck you to the audience. The whole ending is dubious, and you can kind of see it coming. The movie doesn't present a red herring that fits the April Fool's vibe and deceives the audience. Buck would have been perfect as a fake killer, wanting revenge for an April Fool's prank gone too far, but he never leaves the hospital he's pretending to be at.
I'm telling you, I'm at the hospital right now visiting Buck.
The whole premise of Muffy wanting to open a murder mystery hotel is absurd.
But we had fun, didn't we? Come on!
There's no way you could get away with tricking people into thinking they're in danger without something going horribly wrong. Rob alone will clearly be traumatized by the whole experience. Muffy even says herself that the game requires everyone to cooperate.
But everybody had to cooperate, or none of it would have worked.
What if someone sues you instead for that shit, Muffy? What are you gonna do then? Honestly, I'd disown Muffy as a friend for this garbage in a heartbeat. Fucking unforgivable. In the end, Muffy gets her comeuppance when her friend Nan slits the bitch's throat. But not really.
April Fool.
Ha 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 ha! Oh boy. There was an alternate ending where Muffy's brother Skip tries to kill her for the inheritance, but this ending hasn't surfaced. Would have been a lot cooler seeing Muffy killed instead of this winking Jack-in-the-Box shit. April Fool's Day is a controversial horror film for an unusual reason. There's not much horror, and the ending is, well, a little hard to swallow, but the characters are pretty fun. A lot of the time, it feels like the movie is killing time instead of killing people, but at least it feels like you're killing time with old pals. I give April Fool's Day an exploding cigar out of Breakaway Chair. I hope you enjoyed one of my final videos. About 5 to 6 more where that came from.
You're friends with Muffy St. John?
Sure am. We sit together in Econ 345. I let her copy my marginal utility curves.
Oh, I get it. That's a joke.